Hello, this video is for IXL, activity 8.V.2. It is titled Write Variable Expressions, and we're using 2 or 3 operations. The 3-character code for this activity is 6 Quebec Tango. And I've involved this graphic here on the left. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Hopefully you recognize that as a memory device for the order of operations. And I have this here particularly because I want to point out the fact and remind you that, remember, first we have to do parentheses, then exponents, and then after we deal with parentheses and exponents, then we could handle multiplication and division going from left to right, and then after that, all the addition and the subtraction going from left to right as we work through the problem. Now, why is this important? Well, notice that it says 2 or 3 operations. So there's going to be some operations that we have to complete first and then complete the other operations. So we're going to be using parentheses and we're going to be using exponents in this activity. And we want to use those parentheses and use the exponents in order to make sure that the operations are being done in the order that the questions ask us to put them in. So read our directions, write an expression from the sequence of operations described below. It says subtract 7 from z, then add y to the result. Do not simplify any part of the expression. What they mean by don't simplify it is if they say add 7 to 2, then we would put 7 plus 2. We wouldn't write 9. We would not simplify that part of the expression. So let's go ahead and look at what we have to do first. It says first subtract 7 from z, then add y to the result. It would be like if you were told go to school and then after school go to baseball practice. So you have to do one then the other. So we're going to use parentheses to demonstrate the order in which we want to do things. So let's go ahead and grab our pen here. The first thing that we need to do is subtract 7 from z. Now if you put 7 minus z, this is not going to be correct. You're subtracting z from 7. But many people will make this mistake simply because the 7 comes first and they'll see subtract, so they'll think 7 minus sign z. But we don't want to do that. Notice that that's not my eraser. This is my eraser. There we go. So notice that z is what we're starting with, and 7 is what we have to take away from it. So let's go ahead and start with z. I'm going to cross the z so we don't think it's 2, and then we're going to subtract 7. That's subtracting 7 from z. Then add y to the result. Well, what is the result? Well, the result is what we did here first. So let's go ahead and put that in parentheses so that anybody reading this would know, okay, first I have to do z minus 7. Then I have to add y to the result. So add means addition, and we'll put the letter y. So z minus 7 in parentheses plus y. This indeed would be our final answer. So, and you're going to use your keyboard for this. On your keyboard for entering answers into IXL, you're going to use the parentheses brackets on your keyboard. Also, you're going to have to do the minus sign and the plus signs from your keyboard as well. We'll talk about division problems whenever we get to that, entering in a division problem, because for this particular activity, it's all done with the keyboard. We don't have any of those buttons that are going to sit underneath the window for you to select those items there. So those are not there on this activity. If you've seen buttons like that before on other activities, instead you're going to use the keyboard selections for these particular symbols as you work through this activity. Let's look at the next one. It says raise g to the 6th power, then find the sum of the result and f. So let's first deal with raising g to the 6th power. Well, raising something to a power, we know we're talking about exponents, in which we have some number that is our base, b for base, and then we have some value that we're going to put up here, and I'll use e for exponent. So that's what we're talking about when we're raising something to a power. So we're going to raise g to the 6th power. So g is the base, that's what's getting raised to the 6th power. And then find the sum of the result. Well, what's the result? The result of what we did back over here of raising g to the 6th power. Then find the sum of the result and f. Well, if I said find the sum of 3 and 4, you'd be, oh, that's 3 plus 4. So you know that we're talking about addition. So we'll just go ahead and add to the sum. We're adding f. I almost put 4 because I was thinking 4 up here. So g to the 6th plus f. Order operation says we first have to deal with the exponents before we deal with addition. So we don't need any parentheses here because the exponent notation here is going to have to be handled first. So that would be first raising g to the 6th and then adding f to the result. And addition is what we do when we find a sum. On the next one, raise 7 to the 2nd power, then subtract the result from t. So let's go ahead and do 7 to the 2nd power. So we have 7 to the 2nd power. Then subtract the result from t. So we're subtracting something from t. So we're starting with t, and we're subtracting what? We're subtracting the result. And whenever they say the result, what are they referring to right here? Well, they're referring to what we did over here, and that was 7 to the 2nd power. So that's going to be what's subtracted from t. So we do t minus 7 to the 2nd. Well, if you were working this out, you would have to first raise 7 to the 2nd power and then subtract that from t. So that works out with, that agrees with what they're asking us to write here. Also, I want to encourage you to kind of use a piece of scratch paper. If you type this, if you're going to type it in as you read it, be careful to go back. You might have typed in raise 7 to the 2nd power. You might have typed 7. And actually, there is a little button here for the exponent here. You can put an exponent in there. So you click that button, and then that would put the little box there. You'd fill in your 2, and then you'd read on. Then subtract the result from t. Well, you might be tempted to put minus t. Well, that would be actually subtracting t from the result. So instead, on your computer, you'd be able to put the cursor over here, click before the 7, and then type t, t minus, right? And then that way you'd have it in the box the way that they want it to. So either work it out on scratch paper and then type it in, but if you're typing as you go in and you find out you need to put something in front of something that you might have typed already, then just go ahead and click in front of it with your cursor there, and then enter in whatever text or characters that you need to make the answer correct. The next one, divide the difference of 6 and d by 9. So we're talking about the difference of 6 and d. Well, let's deal with that first. That's 6 minus d. Now, in this case, difference is subtraction, right? We're going to subtract the word difference. And they gave it to us in the order of 6, then d. So the difference of 6 and d would be 6 minus d. Now, it says to divide the difference of 6 and d by 9. Well, if I just said divide 8 by 2, you'd go, oh, okay, 8 divided by 2. Or actually, you might type 8 divided by 2. But remember that every fraction is a division problem. You will not find a division button down here for you to click, so that's kind of out of the question. You want to be able to enter it that way. For this particular activity, they expect you to use the / key on your keyboard. So if you want to put 8 divided by 2, you would do 8, hit the / and then 2. So likewise over here, whenever we put this in to the answer box on IXL, well, actually, I guess I should finish this, right? So all that divided by 9. So whenever I put this into IXL, I want to type 6 minus sign, the letter D, and then I want to hit that / for division, and then put 9. Now you might be thinking, I need to do 6 minus D first. Do I need to put parentheses here in the numerator around 6 minus D? Well, the thing about it is that whenever we work with fractions, the numerator and the denominator are like their own separate groupings. It's just assumed that there are parentheses around them already. So parentheses around anything in a numerator or denominator are not necessary unless, of course, part of your expression would require some order operations within the numerator or the denominator. But in this case, I just have to subtract d from 6 in the numerator and then divide the answer by that difference by 9. In this case, I'm not going to need parentheses because, again, as I was saying, the point that I'm trying to get across is that the numerator and the denominator are kind of considered to be their own groupings. Before you can do anything, you would have to deal with everything in the numerator, deal with everything in the denominator, and then do your division. So that's kind of how it works. We really don't cover that much in order of operations, but wanted to point that out. Parentheses would not be necessary. On the next one, raise the product of 2 and k to the 8th power. Well, product means to multiply, so we need to multiply 2 times k. In this case, I can just write 2k, right? 2 times k. That's 2 times k, and I need to raise it to the 8th power. Now, you might be tempted to just put an 8 here and think that that works. But in this case, it wouldn't work because the exponent of 8 only applies to the k here. So if I had something like, let's go ahead and do this. Let's say I had 2 times 6, and I had it to the 2nd power. I want to do 12 and then raise 12 to the 2nd power. Instead, in this case, the exponent of 2 only applies to the value that it immediately follows. So I would have to do 2 times 6 squared, which would be 36, and then I would do the multiplication of 2 times 36. However, in this case, I need the product of 2 and k to be raised to the 8th power. So I need to multiply that 2 times k first. So let's go ahead and put it in parentheses. So we would then put a parentheses, type 2, the letter k, parentheses, and then hit that exponent button down here, and then type in 8 whenever the exponent box pops up. On the next one, it says to double 10, then add n to the result. Well, how do we double something? We multiply it by 2. So let's go ahead and double 10. We have to do this first, so we're going to do 2 times 10. We're going to double 10. Then we're going to add n to the result. What's the result? The result is doubling 10. So let's go ahead and add n plus n, and we would type in parentheses 2 times n, and then plus 2 times 10. Sorry, I'm thinking ahead because I got something on my mind right now. 2 times 10, and then add n. And what was on my mind is that down here there is a box down here with a little dot for the multiplication sign. If you type in an x, that's going to think that you're saying 2 times the value of x times 10. So use the dot right here. Next says divide y by z. So that's the first thing you're going to do. Raise the result to the 10th power. Then add what you have to 4. Wow. Okay, so let's go through all this. So let's first divide y by z. Well, every fraction's a division problem. So y divided by z. I took care of that. Raise the result to the 10th power. Result of what? The result of what we had here. So in order to raise the whole thing to the 10th power, I need the parentheses, and that's not a 10. That's not 18. It's 10. We need the parentheses. Otherwise, if I did this, back. If I wrote this like that, then the exponent only applies to the value of y. So I need the parentheses there in order to make that power of 10 apply to all of it. Then add what you have to 4. So what do we have? Well, this is what we have, right? So let's go ahead and add what we have to 4. So let's go ahead and put a 4, and add means addition, right? So 4 plus. So we would type in 4 plus sign, parentheses, the letter y, the backslash, the letter z, parentheses, then hit that little exponent button down there, and then put in the value of 10. On the next one, multiply u by t, divide v by the result, then subtract w from what you have. Wow. Okay, so first let's deal with multiplying u by t. So we could just I could put u times t, but in reality, I could just put ut. So u, t. I don't need a multiplication sign there because they're two variables, and we would understand that that means multiplication, lack of an operation sign. Then divide v by the result. So we're dividing v by the result over here. So let's divide v by the result. What's getting divided is the denominator. And then after that, we want to subtract w from what you have. So let's go ahead and put parentheses here first so we know we have to do everything here, then subtract w. Subtract w from what you have. So we're going to put in parentheses, the letter u, the letter t, backslash, the letter v, parentheses, minus w. Triple R, subtract the result from p, then multiply q by what you have. Okay, well, if we double something as multiplying it by 2, then tripling it must be multiplying it by 3, right? So triple R, we'll do that as 3R. So let's go ahead and put our 3R, tripling R. Subtract the result from P. So the result is what we had over there. So we're subtracting that from P. P is what we're starting with. So we need to do P minus 3R. Then multiply Q by what you have. So first we have to do all this. So let's put parentheses so we hold it there. And then multiply all that by Q. We could put the Q on the tail end, or we could put it on the front side. I kind of like it on the front side. So let's type Q, parentheses, P minus 3, the letter R, parentheses, and hit enter. On the next one, and this is our final example, we're going to add Q to R, so that's going to be Q plus R. We're going to subtract the result from S, then triple what we have. Wow. Okay, let's do the add Q to R. Q plus R. Subtract the result from S. So let's take that result and then subtract it from S. So S minus that result. Then triple what you have. Then all of this needs tripled. So we need another set of brackets or parentheses. We could use parentheses or we could use brackets, either way. Kind of work your way from the inside out. Parentheses on the inside, brackets on the outside. So if a reader were reading this and trying to solve it, they would first have to substitute for Q, R, and S. But they would do the Q plus the R, then they would subtract that from S, and then we're putting the braces there to hold all of that, because then we need to triple it. So that would be 3. Now I do know for a fact that IXL will allow you to use, let's get smaller eraser there, IXL will allow you to use parentheses both times. So if you wanted to use parentheses outside of parentheses, you could do that as well. So for this one here, we type in 3, parenthesis, S, the minus sign, parenthesis, Q, plus, R, parenthesis, parenthesis. Don't forget that second parenthesis there to hold all of that in. And that finishes all of my examples for IXL 8.V.2, where we write variable expressions using 2 or 3 operations. Good luck with your activity.